Abroad Pod.
Hello, I'm your host, Rowan, and this is the Teaching Abroad Pod. On this episode, I'll be speaking with one of the founders of GlobalWare, a nonprofit organization that develops short-term volunteer programs in international environments that encourage people to immerse themselves in a unique cultural experience while giving back in a sustainable way. And without further ado, I'm happy to introduce to you Kimberly Haley-Coleman, who co-founded GlobalWare more than a quarter century ago with the first missions to Peru and Costa Rica in the year 2000 and nonprofit status gained in 2003. Prior to co-founding GlobalWare, she was, among other roles, vice president of business development for an aerospace company in Houston called Team Encounter, head of business development for a Canadian company, InfoTreaver, which facilitated global contacts and communication, and Director of International Business Development at Telescan, where she created strategic international relationships and developed globalization strategy plan throughout 20 countries to put financial education tools in the hands of millions at no cost to the end user. Kimberly holds an MBA in International Business from the University of Dallas, an MA from Southern Methodist University, and a BA from Emory University. She currently serves on the boards of a number of organizations, including the Executive Committee for the International Volunteer Program Association, an alliance of nonprofit, non-governmental organizations based in the Americas that are involved in the international volunteer and internship exchanges. Welcome to the Teaching Abroad Pod, Kimberly.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Rowan.
So happy you could join us on this day. So I noticed that you'd worked for quite a number of years in international business. What inspired you to move to the nonprofit sector and start GlobalWare?
It was a really gradual, iterative process. I certainly didn't set out to do what I do, I guess, like so many of us. I was always in the international realm and always really interested in other cultures, academically and in terms of regular traditional vacation travel. But I'd already done a lot of the traditional tourist sites. And so when I would go on location for work and find myself on location out of the country over the weekend, I had already seen the touristy things. So I wanted to find a meaningful way of filling my time over the weekends. And that's when I started looking for whatever service or volunteering opportunities there were. And they're just not many things set up for short-term temporary volunteers for obvious reasons. It takes a lot of time, but it made me really want to do it more. So I started just looking individually at grassroots organizations that needed whatever help and setting it up that way. And then when I came home and would tell people how much joy I was getting out of that, other people wanted to join me. And that's when I started realizing, hey, I'm not the only one who wants to do this. How you do it is really important. There are lots of organizations that are oriented very differently. And I'd say that how it's done matters so much. And that's really what we're passionate about in terms of making sure that we're standing side by side as equals with the community. They're choosing the project, they're choosing how we do it. We have to run all of our projects and programs past our own safety criteria. But those are the things that are really important for us because these are 1 week, very short, highly structured projects. And so for us, the magic is making sure that everyone is getting to see the culture, but getting to see it in a way that a traditional tourist wouldn't, so that they're understanding the real beauties and real challenges of a culture, and they're really learning. So it came about accidentally in that sense, but then once I got on that path, I've been on it ever since.
So kind of on that note, I see that you've expanded quite a lot since the first missions to Peru and Costa Rica with programs, and it looks like over 20 countries on 5 continents. How does a new destination materialize? How do you determine where your missions are needed and how do you bring them to fruition?
Well, what used to happen is we would go and meet with lots of different NGOs on the ground to see who has organized themselves well and already knows a challenge they want to face and how they want to face it, and already has some structure around that. And now those organizations come to us and say, hey, can you send us volunteers? So it starts with getting to know and understand that organization and then seeing if we align philosophically, if it meets our standards of safety and sustainability and cultural awareness. So, and then there are safety factors. I would love to tell you that we're in every country where there is extreme need, and we aren't. We're not in Darfur and Somalia and Afghanistan and Palestine. There are certain safety issues we really have to take because we are not sending in trained participants. We are not a paramilitary organization with helicopters and so on. So we're not in war-torn countries. We're not in places where there's an active disease outbreak. We're not having people operate heavy equipment and machinery and handle bodily fluids. So, all of those things are factors that make a location good or not for us. So, we're installing concrete floors in the homes of single moms in Guatemala. We are assembling and distributing wheelchairs for landmine victims in Cambodia. We are building wattle and daub style homes in Kenya and building Adobe Lorena stoves in Peru. These are things that can be finished quickly, that we can teach to our volunteers. The local community is always faster and better at everything we do. And it's part of the expectations we really think are important are set that the volunteer is learning. They are not going in to teach or save anyone. They're partners. Those are the leading factors. Additionally, we are looking for locations that there is a demand for people to already want to go. Machu Picchu is a bucket list item for everyone, right? So it makes sense for us to be working in Cusco because there's a real need. There already is a demand for people to go. Culturally, it's really pithy and rich and interesting, and it just provides an environment where the volunteer will be really enriched and really get to know and understand a different culture. At the same time, they're giving back and helping somebody stand on their own 2 feet. So all of those factors help us determine where we will operate.
Quite a comprehensive review process, it sounds like, and you're working with partner organizations on the ground who have the knowledge already and the structure in place, kind of. So you're not really solo in any of these locations, and everywhere you go, you're working with partner organizations.
Yeah, and so our staff, our coordinator who is shepherding our volunteers through the process is from that community. I liken this to a cruise. If somebody wants to go on a cruise, they go to that cruise ship website and they pick the date and the location and they get themselves there. This is the same thing. It's that simple. You go and say, I want to go to Cuba on March 2nd. You sign up and you'll meet the other 10, 12 people that are on that program. It's a tax deductible contribution to participate in Canada and the US. And then everything is structured for you. You're picked up at the airport, the meals, the accommodations, all the project materials, everything is ready. But that's because our coordinator is the one making sure everything is set up and ready. And that coordinator is communicating continually with the community. Do we still need this? Is it still working? Is the way we did it last time still going to work? And making sure that we're hiring the local staff that are going to make sure. For example, is this the right humidity level of our concrete or our adobe that we're working with? Because our volunteers aren't going to know that, but the local community will. And we are not taking a job away from someone. We are hiring the local expertise to make sure that we're doing things correctly. And I can't say it enough. It's over and over. People go in thinking they're focused on service and saving, and we are learning. Really, we're learning. While the funds that when somebody's paying to go on this program, it is paying for all those materials and it's paying for the locals. But again, our volunteers are learning. And volunteer is even a weird word. I wish there was some other word for it because our participants are paying. So volunteering doesn't seem like the right word. It's this way of connecting to humanity, this experiential connection. I don't know what the right words are for it. We've always struggled with the correct words to use.
We need to create a
Even the
new
word
word
service is wrong. Yeah,
for
I feel
the
like there needs to be a new word.
for the
But I mean,
dictionary.
also because when it comes to travel, I think we have to acknowledge that it comes with a pretty significant carbon footprint. And if somebody's getting on an airplane to go and serve, you might think, okay, well, if I just wrote a check, it would buy more wheelchairs. And it would, as opposed to getting on a plane. But what it doesn't do is make sure that the mind of the person serving is changing their worldview. Not only showing that local community where we're serving, giving them a view of North Americans that is the kind of soft power that John F. Kennedy wanted to have, so that we're showing the world, hey, we care about you, you matter, you're worth getting on a plane for, and then connecting, looking in the eyes of another mother and letting her know, I may not speak your language, I may not be, but I want to stand beside you, and then coming home feeling empowered that I can make a difference. I'm not just scrolling and wondering how do I connect digitally to all these curated experiences I see on a website, but instead actually connecting and getting to know and understand someone's plight and the way they live, so that the volunteer comes back changed, the local community has been changed, and that carbon footprint that was taken hopefully has a much longer lasting impact than just a regular tourist experience, which has its own value and merits. This is just very
Mm.
different.
Yeah, I mean, I can personally relate to that in a lot of ways. I mean, my first teaching abroad experience was through a volunteer program called
Hmm.
Canada World Youth,
Hmm.
which allowed me to go teach English and phys ed in small sugar mill town of Cuba for about 3.5 months. And, that was the best part of the experience was really being immersed in that culture, seeing other perspectives, ways of life, really makes you rethink your
Yeah.
understanding of the world and just seeing people who have almost no money whatsoever would still go out of their way to give to you, share their little bit of money to buy you an ice cream or a shake, or just seeing, people chatting and laughing in the streets as I walk to work in the morning. Maybe sometimes we take for granted so much that we have, and we really can learn a lot from other people and other ways of life.
Yeah. Yeah. A misconception. I think a lot of people come to our programs with this thinking that maybe some unintentional pity about the communities where we're working because they do have so much less. And yet when they arrive, they, in this kind of setting, are able to see both things, the actual challenges that the local community members face. It's not just that, they don't have the latest iPhone. It's that if somebody has a heart attack, access to quick transportation may not be affordable, or healthcare at all, depending
May not
on
have power for
the
long
power for it,
stretches
or
of the
even
day.
running water. People often just don't. Our volunteers are staying in accommodation where we have running water, flushing toilets, power, all that. But then when you're seeing local communities having to pump water and boil it before drinking, and then you're doing it because you're mixing the concrete, it stays in your brain a little bit differently in terms of the challenges, but also the real beauty is that if you are spending hours a day with your friends and your family and your faith that a North American probably doesn't have, that's the real beauty. And you may not have the opportunity to really fully appreciate that if you're just getting off and on a tourist bus and going to churches and museums,
Mm,
to really feel that, to feel the rhythm of life in a different community and what that can come with. So,
absolutely. So, as you may know, most of our listeners are interested in teaching and traveling. Can you elaborate on any destination programs you offer that might be a good fit for someone new to the field of education or who is maybe looking to gain teaching experience, or even maybe those experienced teachers who want to give their time and expertise to a community in need?
so we operate very heavily in Latin America, Southeast Asia, the African continent, and parts of Eastern Europe. Those are our main areas we cover. And they're all appropriate. We have so many teachers who go on our programs. They'll come in, and usually they're able to serve in a couple of ways because there are schools in every community where we work. And many of the projects we do are specifically there to benefit them. Most of the environments where we are far more open in terms of structure. You think about if you're going to Canada or the US and you're wanting to come in and teach something, whatever it is. It could be English as a second language, it could be anything like that. Often, if you're wanting to go to a school in the US, this is the kind of thing that needs to be vetted and structured long in advance. You don't just show up.
Hmm.
In most of the communities where we work, because we're in the same community every week throughout the year, they know us, they already know the coordinator, and they're not as focused on at 8 a.m. we do this, at 9 a.m. we do this. They see that we're coming in. If we're there working on putting in a new sidewalk, they will so readily allow us to come in and do, whether it's practicing English pronunciation or colloquialisms or singing songs. This is very easy for us to plug into almost any of our communities. We don't do it one-on-one. We do these in group settings. But we've done it so frequently that all of our program locations are a really good fit for this, to where they're people who are serving are doing both things. They're doing whatever physical project we've got and interacting with the local communities, which almost always involves a school. In fact, I don't know if we have any exceptions to that. Now, if somebody has a specific thing, like if it's 15th century English literature, we aren't doing that. We're not doing really specific teaching, right? It tends to be softer and means for connection that our local communities are really excited about. Most of our communities, they don't have the resources to where they're ever likely to come to North America. So in a sense, we're bringing that world to them. So there's an enthusiasm and excitement about having volunteers in the schools that is hard for a North American to appreciate in terms of just how interesting and exciting that is for them. So when we go, for example, to Kenya and we're building a home, we always go and visit the schools. The schools, as we're walking up, all the school kids will leave. They see us coming and they all run out of the school building to come and greet us. We're playing soccer, we're going in doing our English exercises and things like that. But it's not something that we experience on a day-to-day level at home, you know? And that's
Mhm.
part of what makes it so exciting from our volunteers. A teacher is learning because they are now in Kenya. All of the architecture is different, the food is different, the music, the way people dress. You know, you're seeing kids that largely don't have shoes and they're playing soccer. So many aspects of life are so different that your perspective, you're out of that workaday, every day is the same routine. And so you can just feel your perspective shifting real time so quickly in terms of both giving and receiving what's happening in that equation.
And would you say there's one destination that's kind of your favorite of all the ones you've been to?
For people who haven't served before, I usually recommend going to a place like Guatemala or Costa Rica first if they're from North America for several reasons. You know, the time zone's not going to be as different. They're not going to have to worry about jet lag, lots and lots of different flight connections. They're not going to have to worry about heavy entry requirements with any sort of visa like you would if you go on our India program. And there's no sort of specific medical requirements to go. And, you know, if you go to certain countries, you're going to have to consider a malaria prophylaxis. So that's why I would say the lower hanging fruit, the easier program is going to usually be Latin America if you're coming from North America. And that's where we usually, and our Guatemala program, it's just so amazing because you are really far off the beaten path. And yet, you're seeing Tikal, which is, you know, older than Machu Picchu, more extensive than Angkor Wat. Nobody seems to know about it.
Sorry, can you
We've
say that again, the name of it?
Tikal, Tikal. And it is incredible. I mean, you know, there was a whole Survivor series filmed there. There's Star Wars movies that have been filmed there because it's such a compelling location, and yet nobody knows about it. Again, we choose those locations on purpose because we want people to be really excited and fired up and see how interesting and wonderful the world is. So we are specifically seeking out locations that will do all of that, have the really exciting, wonderful tourist sites, and put you in contact with these Mayan people who are speaking a native Mayan language, an indigenous language, with their own way of living and getting to see this culture that you can't believe it's got all these amazing differences, and we're still on the same continent, you know.
Hmm.
You know, Costa Rica is wonderful too. The need is not as extreme in terms of resources. You know, they have socialized healthcare and medicine. Their water is potable. People everywhere have running water. So even though they live with a whole lot less, it's in terms of need, Guatemala, the need is just a deeper need.
You're selling it. I want to go now myself. That sounds amazing. Before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
You know, I would just say for people who are looking to do this kind of thing, we have, you know, a YouTube channel, podcast channel, all the social media. We have all of that, you know, anybody looking at Globe aware. But our content will be things like, hey, I don't know how to fill out my traveler form for Cuba, or what do the toilets look like in northern Thailand, or tell me about why you're not supposed to, a woman can't hand something directly to a monk. Right? We have a lot of content there for people who are just interested in going to a country, whether or not they're serving. It's a platform where we really try and share a lot of useful things for people who are traveling, even if they're traveling on their own. So I'd love to share that.
Great. Yeah. Everyone should be sure to check that out. That's something to really consider when you're going into another culture. I know for Thailand, a lot of employers have whole cultural
Yeah,
preparation courses for their new teachers because there's a lot you should know
there is.
about the etiquette and whatnot in different countries. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for joining the pod today, Kimberly. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Rowan.
My pleasure. And you can check out the GlobalWare programs on their website at www.globalware.org. Before we go, I do have a little job placement update for those job seekers who may be listening. As schools are now wrapping up their training of their new spring term hires, it's a good time to start applying for summer starts at language schools in Korea, China, Japan, and Taiwan, as well as fall term starts for public schools and private and international curriculum K to 12 schools with our contacts in Korea, China, Taiwan, and Colombia. For those still looking for something later in spring, now is the time to apply for positions starting at the beginning of the Thai school year in May. And Thailand K to 12 schools is a great option to get your feet wet in TEFL. Or if you're just looking for something short term, as you could try out teaching in Thailand on a 5 month stint from maybe May into September. So be sure to get in touch with your placement advisor about that. Thanks as always for tuning in to the Teaching Abroad Pod. We'll be releasing new episodes monthly for the foreseeable future. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the usual places. If you have any great ideas you'd like to hear us discuss in upcoming episodes, please leave them in the comments on YouTube or email us at teachingabroadpod@oxfordseminars.com. Thanks for listening.